From the moment the stage lights washed over them, Junior New System stood like a group carved from determination itself. Nothing glittered on their bodies. No expensive props surrounded them. No flashy illusions backed them. What the audience saw were young Filipino dancers, whose eyes held the weight of years far beyond their age. Every heartbeat in the room seemed too slow as they adjusted their 6-inch heels, a small gesture that made even the judges frown in curiosity. It wasn't just footwear, it was a challenge they had chosen. A statement they carried. Before stepping onto that stage, they had lived through evenings where the sound of their own breathing was louder than music. They practiced under a tin roof that clattered during storms, where the floor cracked beneath their feet and every jump felt like a gamble. They taped their torn shoes, stitched their costumes by hand, and stretched their aching bodies without any professional guidance. Some days they trained hungry, some days they trained exhausted, but every day they trained together with a unity that felt stronger than blood. Their parents didn't always understand. Why dance in heels? Why not choose something safer, something traditional, something that wouldn't get them laughed at by people who didn't understand courage? But the boys never backed down. They wanted to prove that dance wasn't defined by rules carved in stone. It was defined by bravery, by passion that refused to stay inside the line society drew for them. Heels were not shame. Heels were power. Heels were rebellion. Heels were their voice when the world didn't listen. During their rehearsals, they fell more times than they stood. Ankles twisted, knees scraped, arms bruised from catching each other mid-fall. But what made them different was that they never practiced separately. If one fell, everyone paused. If one was hurt, everyone waited. Their bond was built not on perfect talent, but on shared struggle. Some of them worked at local stores after school. Some helped their families sell goods on the streets. Some carried responsibilities heavier than their backpacks. Yet no matter how tired they returned to that tiny room every night, driven by a dream so loud it drowned out everything else. As they stood backstage waiting for their turn, they remembered those countless nights. They remembered the time rain poured through the roof so heavily that they danced with water reaching their ankles. They remembered practicing in the dark during brownouts, using only the glow of a single phone screen. They remembered when people laughed at their heels, calling them foolish, calling them weak. But each insult had only fueled them. Each struggle had shaped them. And now, at the edge of the biggest stage of their lives, they weren't scared. They were ready. When the music finally erupted through the speakers, they exploded into motion with a force that caught everyone off guard. Their heels slammed against the stage as if announcing their arrival to the world. Their movements weren't just sharp. They were electric, precise, daring. Every kick soared higher than anyone expected in heels that tall. Every flip looked like a defiance of gravity. Their synchrony was so tight that it felt like watching a single heartbeat pulse across the stage. The judges exchanged glances that said everything. This wasn't just talent. This was struggle transformed into art. This was survival turned into choreography. The audience screamed as stunt after stunt landed without hesitation. One moment they were spinning with impossible speed. The next, they dropped into a low split, heels catching the light like sparks. They moved with joy, with anger, with hope, with a kind of fire that can only come from people who have fought for every inch of their path. But their performance wasn't loud just because of their skill. It was loud because of what it meant. Every leap carried the story of the nights they danced barefoot on concrete until their skin burned. Every turn spoke of the afternoons They spent practicing when they should have been resting. Every formation held the voices of the people back home cheering them on, knowing that these boys were carrying not just their dreams but the dreams of an entire community. As he hit the middle section of their routine, the crowd rose to their feet, unable to hold back their excitement. The boys felt the energy surge through them, but they didn't lose focus. They had promised each other before stepping on stage that no matter how loud the cheers got, they would dance like they were still in that tiny room with a leaking roof. They would dance with the same hunger that brought them here. And they did. Their final sequence was the most dangerous part of their routine. It required absolute timing, absolute trust, and absolute courage. With one synchronized exhale, they launched into it. Flips, spins, lifts, landing heel first with impossible stability. The room erupted. People jumped from their seats. Even the judges stood, shocked by what they had just witnessed. And then, with a final pose, sharp enough to cut through the noise, the music stopped. Silence hovered for a fraction of a second, as if the entire world paused to understand what had just happened. Then the applause hit like thunder. The boys stood there, panting, sweat dripping, hearts pounding, eyes shining. Some of them looked like they were fighting tears. All those years of sacrifice, all the nights of doubt, all the moments they wondered if they were foolish for dreaming. Everything suddenly made sense. They weren't just a dance group anymore. They were storytellers, warriors, symbols of hope for every kid who grew up believing dreams were too expensive to afford. They had shown the world that greatness doesn't require perfect training, perfect shoes, perfect studios, or perfect circumstances. It requires courage. It requires unity. It requires stepping into 6-inch heels and daring the world to doubt you. As the judges praised them, as the cameras flashed, as the crowd screamed their name, the boys didn't just feel proud. They felt shone. They felt understood. They felt like their dream had finally grown wings. And deep in their hearts, they knew this was only the beginning. They had climbed their mountain. Now they were ready to fly.